Okay.
Okay,
Welcome,
we're
everyone.
recording.
Welcome. On behalf of ICF UAE chapter, I would like to welcome you all to our fall event webinar. My name is Maisa Khalil. I'm your MC for this evening, and I'm the event director. Before we go ahead, I would like to share a number of housekeeping guidelines with you. Just trying to move to the next chapter. The guidelines. Okay, this session will be recorded and will be shared on our website and our social media platforms. For those who will be attending the webinar incomplete, will be receiving CCEUs. I'm just gonna stop sharing for a second because I'm trying to get to the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about. Yes, okay. So for those who would like to get their CCEUs, please get in touch with me on this email, events@coachfederation.ae. We have two of our executive board members, Anita and Franda, who will be helping us here. Anita will be handling the Q&A box, and Franda will let people in as they come. This is the agenda for tonight. We will start with a chapter update. Chapter update was supposed to be presented by our president, Rania Ling. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen family emergency, she will not be able to join us tonight. And she sends her apology and wish you all a lovely evening. Lena will be presenting on her behalf. I'll pass it on to Lena now.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you.
Maisa. And from attendees, they say we cannot see the slides.
Okay. So let me stop sharing and share again.
mhm. So meanwhile, as we are going around this little technical glitch,
What
I,
about now? Can you see it now?
Yeah,
yes, I think, can we confirm in the chat box that we can see the slides?
I
Okay.
can see it now. Couldn't see it
Yes,
before.
yes.
You
And
can see
everybody,
it
yeah,
now?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are the
So these are the
guidelines.
guidelines. This is the agenda, the guidelines again. This webinar will be recorded. For your CCEUs, contact Maisa Khalil. And I encourage you all to use the Q&A box for any question. Okay, I'll hand it over to you, Lina.
Okay. Thank you, Maisa. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, or maybe good morning, depending on where you are calling in from today. And on behalf of the ICF UAE board, I really thank you for joining us tonight for this very exciting virtual event. As you can see, we have reached people from different parts of the globe who are really interested and which we thank for their attendance with us. As Maisa has mentioned, I will be starting with the chapter updates, which is a message that I'm relaying on behalf of our president, Rania Ling, who unfortunately was unable to be with us tonight due to some family emergency. So here we go on behalf of Rania. Firstly, thank you to our members and non-members joining us for this fall event 2020. I would like to welcome Dr. Saima and Dr. Marcia Reynolds to the UAE chapter event. Thank you for being our special guest speakers tonight. I am excited about the exceptional quality you bring to us in your keynote talks. Before we start, I would like to update our community on achievements and activities this year. It has certainly been a very challenging year for everyone all over the globe. The pandemic has affected us all individually and collectively in countless ways. The UAE chapter board has been affected much like any other team in our business community. The board we started out with at the beginning of the year is sadly a very different team to the one that is working together now. With regret, we have said goodbye to Claudia Halbi, Nieves Puentes, Dennis Kite, Fanika Nikic, and Farzana Kazumi. We're under no doubt that we shall experience further changes as our lives continue to be affected by the pandemic. On behalf of the board, I would like to give a warm and special thank you to our past presidents, Nihat Tadros and Dalal Denli, for their mentorship and their guidance to help us navigate our challenges this year. And last but not least, our deep appreciation goes to Haitham Shaheen, Senior Regional Development Manager for the EMEA, for his constant optimism, support, and championing for our chapter to the global teams. The biggest thank you of all goes to our current board members. It's with the greatest honor and pleasure that I am joined tonight by Lina Al-Assad, Vice President, myself, Maisa Khalil, you already met our MC, and she's the Director of Events. Barbara Stickland, who's unable to join as well, Director of Finance and Admin, Franda Grapes, Board Executive of Communications, and Anita O'Connor Roberts, Board Executive for Abu Dhabi. I would now like to share with you the results of the hard work and commitment from the UAE Chapter Board. Our intention with our spring event was to support our members during the challenges of COVID-19 by inviting Andrew Neiflick, an international speaker and coach renowned for successful business development. We achieved 85 attendees with out of 122 registered, which is extremely high, and feedback was overall very positive. I believe tonight we even have a higher number, and that's good. That's a sign that we're really growing. Over the 7 days of ICW week, we achieved participation of 18 events by 22 speakers and a total attendance figure of 625, which exceeds previous years when ICW was primarily face-to-face or physical. In addition, throughout Q1 and Q2, we delivered a further 4 webinars and hosted 6 online monthly socials. Our membership base kept growing to reach 353 members today, which is an increase of 70% over prior same time last year. And our retention rates exceeded last year and reached 65%. We are deeply grateful for the trust of every single member. We continue to have 54% of our members holding a credential, be it ACC, PCC, or MCC. And this year, we celebrate doubling our MCC members on our team. So the MCC is the high, as you know, Master Certified Coach, and is the highest credentialing level. We'd like to congratulate all of the new MCCs and looking forward for more new names to join our membership. Back in 2019, the UAE chapter became the first chapter to manage a regional PR budget allocation to raise the awareness of ICF coaching and the PRISM Award in the Middle East. With the award being postponed, we had to pause the activity. Despite the freeze on the Middle East PRISM PR campaign, the chapter continued to work with COPIA, the PR agency, in goodwill and released contributing content. The Middle East PRISM Awards was then reconfirmed for September and was the first virtual award. Against a total budget of $15,000, we achieved an incredible result with a total PR value of over $1.3 million US dollars. As 2020 draws to a close, the board and I are set to further review the structure and strategy of the UAE Chapter Board of Directors in order to consider developing and improving our sustainability and learning from the challenges of this year. As always, we shall communicate updates regarding election process and strategic projects via email to our members. Thank you and hope you enjoy your night. And with that, I end the message on chapter update. which is relayed to you on behalf again of Rania Ling, our chapter president, who apologizes for being unable to be with us here tonight. And now let's move to the juicy part of our event with the first talk entitled Coaching Beyond the New Reality for Systemic Change. Our first keynote speaker tonight is Dr. Saima Butt, which I will be introducing in a moment. Before I do that, I would like to really invite you to turn off all distractions and get present for this talk in order for you to make the best out of this time, as it will be an interactive session. I would also like to remind you to post your questions in the Q&A box, or I would like to request that you post your questions in the Q&A box, which is found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And this will help really streamline the questions from the chat. So let's get started. And I will introduce Dr. Saima very briefly, as many of you may have read the full bio and got to know Dr. Saima through the interview, which was shared on our website. So Dr. Saima Butt, Master Certified Coach, MCC, is part of the ICF Foundation's Board of Trustees and co-founder of her own business supporting major projects around the world. For Saima, coaching and societal progress are inexplicably linked. Her purpose is to connect people with the abundance of their potential. She holds a vision for humanity in which people come together to generate social change for an equitable place for all to thrive. And tonight, we have the amazing Amy Crispney, who will be also present with Dr. Saima. Amy is part of the ICF Foundation staff team as the Director of Marketing and Outreach. Amy is constantly creating innovative ways for fundraising for the great work of the Foundation and would welcome your ideas too. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Saima and Amy, and I hand over to you, ladies.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Welcome to my cloudy Oxford, and I'm just loving the opportunity that we get to connect with you from all over the world. You'll hear a little bit from me, and you'll also hear a little bit from Amy too over this conversation. And I will share some slides, but just letting you know, I don't see you. I see the Dubai chapter. I see Amy and I see myself. So at some stage, reach out to us and Amy will share more about how we can do that and how we can connect with each other beyond this afternoon. But the intent for today is to evoke, is to provoke, and it is only to inspire you to find what's the innovation of our coaching towards the greatest impact that we can make in service for humanity. It's an opportunity to create a space. It's an opportunity, for something to emerge around what else, what more, what if, what difference can our coaching make for how we think, how we feel, how we're being, and of course the community that it can impact when we're doing the great work that we do. So a little bit about the foundation first of all, and I'll get Amy to say hello in a second as well. You're all probably very familiar with the term Ubuntu. It's South African, Ubuntu. The foundation exists because coaches are. Your commitment, your vision, your passion for what you do and how you do it to make a difference in the world gives us an opportunity to harness that, bind it together, and then ultimately be able to provoke something that can be masterful and impactful around the rest of the world. Lena's introduced us, but let me just give Amy an opportunity to say hello to you too.
So hello, it is, as Saima said, it's such an honor to be with some of you again and with some of you for the first time. I don't know that I could say it more eloquently than Saima already has, but we are here because of the passion of coaches. We could not do at the foundation what we do, the work we do, the impact we make, the ways that we support the work that we're doing. We couldn't do any of it without each and every one of you. So thank you for giving us this space today. I hope that you will really be able to expand and think about how your impact is being made every day in your community around you. So thank you, Saima, and thank you, ICF UAE, for inviting us to be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to start with what we at the foundation are describing as our moonshot. This is our pledge and our absolute commitment wholeheartedly to what we want to be able to do. The intent is that we impact 1 billion lives through the power of coaching by the time 2030 happens. 1 billion lives. Now that's developing a position globally where we are defining coaching for good. Coaching for good in this context from the foundation. Now, the numbers aren't important here. Let's not get hung up with 1 billion in 2030. The opportunity is, and the importance is how can we deliver in a scalable fashion, a way in which we can partner with yourselves as members, your chapters as an ICF global community, your regional connections, be them charities, NGOs, not-for-profit organizations, government agencies, organizations that will work towards social development in service of humanity. We're looking to be able to support organizations such as that, organizations such as yours, if you're a sole trader, to be able to transform in order to be able to change the course of history. This is positive impact. And by that, I'm describing everybody, everybody that matters to us, all our significant others. This is a chance for us to ask the question, how can I focus? Where can I specifically focus for the greatest social impact? So, a little more about what the foundation does. Amy would love it for me to share with you, of course, that for us to exist, we need some support. She'll say a little more of that a little later on. But here's what we're doing. As a foundation, our intention is to equip coaches, chapters, family organizations around the rest of the greater ICF system with tools, with opportunities. And the intention is that we then are able to amplify the work that we do as coaches around the world. And here then is the opportunity to determine exactly where we start identifying collectively, systematically, where is the most important point? Now, within the ICF Foundation, the language is insertion point, the acupuncture point for exactly where can we really impact the work that we do as coaches to get the most profound difference for the communities, the networks around them. So, of course, what we want to be able to do is to amplify and accelerate this. So how you do it, where you do it, with whom you do it, and our intent is to support you in that work. It's to support you in the service of what you want for others around you. So let me start kicking off by sharing the screen. You'll get a sense of where we are. Here we go. Amy, give me a nod. One of you give me a nod if you can see the screen. I think you can. That's wonderful. So here's the conversation that we're all having today. And of course, you'll notice that the opportunity is that for all of us, given the year, I don't know what type of year you have had, but mine's been very different. Mine's been significantly different. I've stood here for the majority of my work. And I want us to just be able to connect in with each other in how can we make this count? How can we make the changes that we've had to all endure in 2020 count to make a sustainable difference for everybody? Now, a session wouldn't go by if I didn't honor our president at the moment, Morel Foreman at the ICF Foundation. And to quote him for a moment, he describes it in this way. Our lives are inextricably linked by the common thread of humanity. If we break it, we are all undone. We're connected, deeply grounded and rooted and connected to this world, to the people around us. Let me give you a moment. Just take a moment of solo time and solo reflection, and I'll give you a minute. What I'd like to be able to do is to ask you a question. Now, some of you might have come across this question once before. This is the question that the foundation lives in. And here's what we're asking. What is coaching's greatest contribution, greatest possible contribution to humanity and the planet? I'm going to give you a minute just to dwell on that for yourselves. And then in a moment, I'll invite for you to populate the chat box. What is coaching's greatest possible contribution to humanity and the planet? That's about a minute. Yeah. There is some amazing work already in the chat box, and I'm loving the interaction between us already. In a moment, I'm going to invite Amy to start sharing with you a link with Menti, not quite yet, but just in a moment. And so we're going to get you to plug in some more information that you will be able to share with us here. And by the way, if you had an opportunity to watch the video that Morel had created a few years back beforehand, before this conversation, and you've had some time to reflect on the questions that we issued out and sent out for you before, here's what's possible. Here's what's become possible for us. And this is social impact through pro bono. Now, through pro bono for the greater good. Pro bono literally translated means for the benefit of the public. It does not always necessarily mean for free. So by the term pro bono, remember please that I'm reflecting on free, yeah, sometimes, low bono, and fully paid what your fees are in this moment work, coaching for good. So over the years, since 2017, the foundation launched Ignite initiative. And to date, we have around 4750 chapters who have delivered pro bono projects in about 90 organizations. And here's what's been possible. Over that time, and we have only focused on SDG 4, that's quality education for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But here's what's been possible. Up until now, we have touched and impacted the difference to approximately 16 million people. That's the difference that your work through your chapters as members, giving your time, giving your skill can create just in a really short period of time, which is why now you see that our goal, our moonshot, isn't so audacious. So here's what else the foundation does. We're intending to create an opportunity where we become the first as an ICF organization to be able to actively measure SROI, social return on investment of your coaching. This you'll be able to take into your organizations, your clients, and say, this is the difference I can make to your bottom line and to the well-being of the people that I work with. We're working with partner organizations, as you can see, such as UNICEF, the Special Olympics, and all the other organizations that you've tapped into as chapters delivering your pro bono initiatives around the world. Okay. Now, up until about now, We focus specifically on delivering pro bono coaching initiatives in SDG 4. I said that a little earlier on. But what we're giving you liberty for now is to let's just go ahead and tap into any one of the 17 SDGs. Any one of the 17 SDGs fundamentally means if we align with those, our intention is to act fast, on scale, and with principle. What's possible just blows my mind. Given the work that you already are capable of doing, it blows my mind. So here's an opportunity. And if you got the homework that you did beforehand, this is the conversation I was setting up around purpose. What is your purpose in the work that you do? How would you feel when you're realized that it's been achieved? In a moment, I'm going to start asking Amy to send you out a link to a word cloud. We're going to capture some words from you. But here's the question. Here's the conversation. Think about it in this context. What one word would best describe how you'd feel as your purpose for what you want in the world becomes realized? What's the one word that when, for me, if acceptance for us to all belong to a shared global community, that we each feel acknowledged, we each feel responsible, we each feel respected, starts to happen, and we can each feel accountable for who we are and what this world means to us on this planet that we call home. Amy's popped up the link. Go ahead and start populating on that link these powerful words that you're popping up now. And in a moment, we'd like to share them with you. I'm seeing some words here: joy, love, freedom, hope, satisfaction, all being equal, and gratitude. And they're popping up full and fast. Celine says beauty. There you go. Amy's popped up the link again, and Hatham has done so too. Pop up into the link. What is that one word that shows up for you? Wholehearted. Yeah. An abundance of wealth. Yes. Wealth in our spirituality, wealth in our physicality, in our mental well-being, wealth for everybody, not just the dollars and yen and, oh yeah, dirhams that we all have and need. Amy, how are we doing with the Menti? Do we have enough population? Let's see where we are.
I'm not sure. We're seeing more population through the chat than we are currently at the Menti.
I think everybody is, sharing their
Yeah,
information on
that's right.
on the chat.
Absolutely. If everybody wants to go to www.menti.com, you can use this code 7751862, and that will give you this poll that you can populate. But great responses, Saima, so far.
Yeah, especially on the chat. And Anita, what a wonderful idea. Let's start giving people a countdown, maybe 30 more seconds or something, just so that we can start to see what else is happening. And you know what? If the poll doesn't show up, it's completely okay on the word cloud. We're just going to use this chat anyway and save the words that you're sharing with us here. And thank you for those who have shared. Jeffrey's saying graceful. And Shamina, again, I see that word fulfillment. There we go. There we go. Fulfilled. Complete. Oh my goodness, look at that. Expanded. Freedom. Graceful. Love. Peace. Wouldn't that be an amazing opportunity for our world? Those words don't surprise me. Those words don't surprise me because I know and believe in the love and the commitment and the absolute intent of the work that we do. I've met some of you, I've worked with some of you, and I'm continuing to connect with more and more of you. And this is our ultimate aim. We don't just roll into and stumble upon coaching. As coaches, our intent is to be able to create a better something, that new reality, that systemic change for what we're seeing, so that it genuinely satisfies our need for, this needs to be different. This needs to be different. Thanks for sharing, Amy. I'm going to pop back on again. There we go. All right, let's go back to sharing my screen. Where are we? Here we are. Okay, now that you've got used to the link, and you've also gotten used to how Amy loves to have you diving between the chat box and the Menti link, here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity. And what we're looking for is that insertion point. In this question, we're fundamentally asking you, how can we accelerate? How can we amplify? How can we really transform over these years, and especially because of what's happened in this year, to make a massive difference? And the question is, where specifically could coaching be focused to impact our shared world? What is that insertion point for you? And it could be anything within your chapter, anything within your region, your city, across the country that you're living in, dialing in from today, or across the world. What is that insertion point? Who or what is that insertion point? How and where would you accelerate and amplify the work that you do as a coach, as a team coach, as an individual, in-house, out-house? Would it be, again, in quality education? Would you want to engage a conversation within the climate? Is it to reduce inequalities, for social justice, in a world for people where we can all live? And I notice those words pop up: equality, inclusion. Let me give you another minute, and Amy will pop up in the chat box the second link. There's the question, Amy sharing it with you. Let's take a whole minute. Where specifically could coaching be focused to impact our shared world? Is there a government department, a government agency within your country that could profoundly be impacted by a little bit of pro bono, a little bit of low bono, or your full fees, to make a real ripple effect impact on the other people, the end user of the social development work that these organizations do? How are we doing for numbers, Amy?
We have about 22, 23. We're growing slowly and sure.
Okay, let's give it another moment or two.
Looks like we have just about 40 people so far. Thank you all for your fantastic response.
Wonderful. Afsana says in government sectors. Yeah. Juan says young people. Connection. Reem Ben, I love that you say fulfillment is a winner from the last bubble world cloud. Go ahead and reveal, Amy. Show us what you've got. What have you all been populating? Wow. Gosh, thank you all for your graciousness. This just sends a shiver, knowing that this can be resolved. This can be impacted. Early childhood coaching, young people, children and parents, purpose, politics and places, schools, educational system, women's empowerment, gender equality, universities. Wow, there is an abundance of work that you have put into here. I can't read it fast enough. This is so... The work, if we were to focus, we're finding our insertion points as we speak with you, would be overwhelming for a greater good, for a world I want my children and my grandchildren to grow up in, for us to be safe and to be loved and feel like we belong. This is the work that you do. This is the impact that you can have. There's no profound coaching tool for today's conversation. What there is, as I said right at the beginning, was an opportunity to just evoke and only to inspire. The great work that you do, what is the tiny little adjustment that you could make to have the profound difference to some of these bubbles that are popping up now? I'm going to be so totally distracted because I'm just going to want to read this. Amy, save that, bank it. This has been an amazing interactive team. I'm so grateful to you all. Okay, thanks, Amy. And Amy, go ahead and share a little bit about how everyone can stay connected with us.
Absolutely. Well, many of you all, I know, have already been involved within your own chapters and those Ignite initiatives. As Saima mentioned earlier, the foundation website is a great resource of opportunities and tools and toolkits to help you get connected to the work that we're doing. Everything from connecting to our newsletters to helping us and following us on social media, which helps us with our reach. And getting the word out about the word that we're doing, from that end of the spectrum all the way to helping support the work. You know, we have some amazing trustees. We have many of you probably as you joined and renewed your membership were so very kind and generous to us and made a gift to support the work that we're doing. We always have opportunities for that. We are getting ready to celebrate December 1st, what we call Global Giving Tuesday, and you'll see information either in the chapter updates or your member updates coming soon about how you can get involved and help us in that capacity. And additionally, as Saima said, we are gearing up for this amazing opportunity for individuals, chapters, credential holders, and just anybody who will join along the movement with us to come together, to utilize our tools, and to make an impact in their communities, with their family, and create that ripple effect of coaching and what it can bring. And going back to that original word bubble, right? That it will bring fulfillment, that it will bring opportunities, that people will be able to just be, and then our world will be full of peace. So many different ways. Probably the quickest way to get there, and I will put it in the chat box a couple times as we move forward, is connecting to us via our website or to me directly. But just the willingness to be open in your heart to get involved on some level will make a difference in what the foundation's trying to do. So for that, I thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And, you know, please explore the website. because on it, you're going to find a suite of resources which you can download for yourself. There isn't any membership fee or anything involved. Go ahead and just help yourself. There is an agreement for how you want to set up a pro bono arrangement. There are some ways of how you can start to connect in. There's a route map of how you can safely and substantially set up a pro bono initiative for yourself as a member that wants to make a difference, or through your chapter. So engage with your chapter. Start bringing a conversation to your local chapter and saying, here's what can be possible. If we were just to coach these leaders within this organization, this is the difference it could make as the ripple effect to the end users. By end users, I'm talking about our communities, our families, our co-workers. That's the world we want to be able to have happen. So before I open up to Q&A, fundamentally, this is all I'm asking. If you could change anything, if you could change one thing from within your own chapter or within your own region, what is it that calls you? What is it that you feel that could become possible? And just start to lean into that insertion point. Start to lean in and start drawing other people into what could be possible here. In fact, call us, get in touch with Amy, ping me an email, find out how we can support you. What else is it that we might be able to do to activate more coach support for you? Let's just have the result that I know we each intend for our world. What's showing up in the Q&A, Amy? What's showing up in the chat box? Do we have any comments, questions that we want to pay attention to?
So we have some people saying thank you to us for sharing information, and we're thankful that you're thankful. Lots of great dialogue just about young people enduring, where we can connect. But I would just encourage everybody right now, we really wanted to spend some time and create some open space for you to ask us questions. So if you'll take a few minutes to send us some Q&A, either in the chat or Q&A, your questions or thoughts about how to start finding that insertion point or where you can start making an impact. Nadiko said, thanks for our support and our focus. We have another folks saying, thanks to everyone and looking forward to more engagement and support for new coaches out there. We're glad to have you 2 new coaches. It has been an amazing year. While COVID has caused challenges for lots of us, man, it has opened up the opportunity for many to become coaches, and that impact that we can make on the world is getting bigger and bigger. So for that, we're super grateful. It looks like we have a question in the chat box. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be an excellent coach?
Just be completely, totally, and wholly you, authentically you. To be an awesome coach, I think is just to show up as being an awesome you. Don't try being anybody else. For goodness sake, please don't try being anybody else. Just be you. And in another 5 seconds, you might have me setting myself off on a coach training program, because that's the conversation that we teach. And I'm certain, you know, I noticed that Marcia's on the call too, and Marcia will be able to give you, I'm certain, way more information around that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would give a little note to saying, keep connected with your local chapter. Events like this UAE Fall event, connecting to your chapter, and ICF and their website, I think, are great resources with educational items you can connect to, webinars, panels, so on and so forth. Thank you, Miss Linda from one of our global boards, saying thank you for the inspiration and for all the work that the foundation is doing. I had another comment from UAE. It would be great to have more engaging events and promote the presence of coaches and create opportunities for us in the market. And let me pop over here. We have another question in the Q&A. Someone just moved to Spain, Mariana, and we'll change chapters next year. And she's curious if there's anybody here from a chapter in a Spanish chapter. So if you're here from another Spanish chapter, please say something in the chat. And otherwise, definitely connect with me and we'll try to get you connected to the right chapters. Another question that's come in the chat box is, how can you support us in offering pro bono coaching to families and teenagers of terminal cancer patients? Sherry, if you would like to connect with me via email, and I'll add that again to the information, those toolkit resources that we have for Ignite can be used. They're really set up in a capacity to help you know how to put the logistics of that together and put into process a coaching initiative, I think is probably the best word, but it will give you some things to think about as you're setting up those opportunities and what an impact you will make in putting that type of a program together. Saima, we have a couple of questions about your email LinkedIn. If you have a minute and can share that or are willing to share that.
Sure.
And let's see. Got lots of questions coming in now.
There's my email. And I'll pink in my LinkedIn.
We have a great question around, please need to connect to the NGOs. Again, if you want to reach out to us at the foundation, we'd be happy to do that. We have seen people connect with NGOs on all kinds of levels. It's been everything from the question we had earlier, which is a passion that you are already connected with a nonprofit or NGO and you've been a coaching there. Or if you wanted to connect into one of the global events, opportunities that we do, say with UNICEF or with Special Olympics, we can connect you that. So I will put that also, I'll put my information there for you to connect with me.
So there's enough information. We promise we won't be sharing any tools, but actually there's enough information. But here, let's just wrap as we start to draw towards an end. I see Marcia and Lena eagerly awaiting the next round of conversations for this afternoon's conference. This is what the invitation is again. Lean into what you're feeling. Where could you make the biggest difference? Listen to the system around you. Listen to you, absolutely connected to that system. And as you start to hear something, start whispering it. Start sharing it. Don't hold back too long. Shout it out to us, to your chapter, to your co-coaches, and let's start making change. Thank you all. Handing back over to you, my dear lovelies in the UAE.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Saima, and thank you, Amy. This has been an amazing talk and a lot of powerful insights, very valuable information. So we really appreciate it very much. I would like to remind the attendees that this session and event will entitle you to CCEU's Continuous Coach Education Units. So if you wish to claim that at the end of attending the full event, you can email Marcia events@coachfederation.ae. We will put it in the chat box soon. And we will also be sending you an email tomorrow with all the information, who to email, and a survey link that we would appreciate if you fill for us, as we would love to hear back from you. Now, before we move to our next keynote speaker and presentation, I'll hand over to Marcia and she'll tell you what we're doing next.
Thank you, Lena. What we are doing next is a break. So just enough of us. If you want to just have grab your drink, refresh the drink, and come back in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you. So take a very short break. How long shall we go? Because we don't want to go for too long. We're really eagerly awaiting Dr. Reynolds, who's here with us. But if you need to refill your coffee, just have a quick break, refresh, and come back. Take 5 minutes will do. Yeah.
3?
3. Okay. Maisa's saying 3. So let's see.
You can put your slides back up. Now I'm ready.
Hello.
Your countdown, you can put them back up. I took them off. Oh, well.
Okay, I don't have them. It's Maisa who can. I think we're even getting closer to the 3 minutes. Maisa has to tell us. I don't know. Maisa?
There you go.
She's probably on her own break.
No, guys, I'm here. I'm just wondering what happened to the countdown. It disappeared.
Yeah, no, I had to take it off to set my slides up. I hate doing that.
No worries. Thank you. Good to have you. Thank you. No worries.
Okay, there's still some interaction from
And chat box, yes.
Dr. Saima. Yeah, I don't know if she's here to respond.
Yes, there's just one question in the question and answer box. From Mirvat. I have a lot of work with NGOs as pro bono. I would love to have the guidance of Ignite to make it more ICF standards too.
From Mirvat?
Yes. Which Amy or Saima may be able to answer with.
If they're still out there. So, oh, there you go.
Hi, Saima.
So, Are we all back?
I think we've had 5 minutes now, so if you want to.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can move on, and we are ready. So welcome back for those who moved from their seats. It was good for well-being. And now we move to our next topic on this event, which is coaching beyond. Can we stop the timer? Did the timer stop?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So our next topic is, as you know, coaching beyond the story. And with our next guest speaker, who you have guessed already, is Dr. Marcia Reynolds. Before we start, I would like to remind you and request that you post your questions in the Q&A box. It will help streamline as we're going with the Q&A. I have here also Anita O'Connor, our ICF board executive for Abu Dhabi, who will be monitoring the Q&A and curating the questions at different points of the presentation and asking Dr. Reynolds. So now I have the great honor to present to you very briefly again, Dr. Marcia Reynolds. She's a Master Certified Coach, MCC, and is the president of Co-Visioning LLC, and is fascinated by the brain, especially what triggers feelings of connection, commitment, and possibility. She's trained and coached leaders in 41 countries, and has presented at the Harvard Kennedy School and Cornell University, as well as universities in Europe and Asia. Marcia is a pioneer in the coaching profession. She was the 5th global president of the ICF and recently included into the ICF Circle of Distinction for her contributions to the global coaching community. Currently, she's the training director of the Healthcare Coaching Institute in North Carolina. She's also on the faculty of coaching schools in Russia, the Philippines, and China. Outside of the school, she teaches leaders as coach classes to organizations around the world and consults with them to build coaching cultures. She's recognized by global gurus as the #5 coach in the world. Welcome, Dr. Reynolds, and let's get started.
Great, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to share. Okay, great, thank you. Let me share my slides. So it's a nice transition, you know. So Saima talked to you about purpose and the impact that we're making in the world and how powerful it is and what we can do. And she so inspires me. See, she's so full of heart. I'm going to bring you down into how do we best do this? How do we, when we're with people, do we help them to transform, to see what's possible, to make that impact in the world? So just so you know, what kind of launched me on this journey, almost 40 years ago, I ended up, it was an accidental career. I ended up in a training department. My first master's was in broadcasting, and I ended up pushing television sets around in a hospital. But it was for a training department. And my boss decided to get her doctorate and dump the whole department in my lap. And I quickly had to learn, how do I deliver training where it really changes people's minds and behavior? Well, I read the books and I would, we had conversations, but I wanted to know more. So I got a second master's in adult learning and instructional design so I could do this better. And that's when I started to discover that in order for people to truly change, that it has to be that they change their entire perspective. It's not just about giving them skills, that we have to go inside. And back then, and it was quite a while ago, they said that people create maps in their brain. So whenever they face a situation, they pull out a map and it gives them direction on where to go. But what I've learned since then is it's not just a map, it's a full story, that we create these stories based on our experiences, and that's how we make decisions of what to do. So when we're coaching people, we have to get inside their stories to make change. So I spent years looking for, what does it take to really make change? I would have great classes and people would give me happy faces and say thank you. And then as soon as they faced a difficult situation, they'd go back to their old behavior. So when I found coaching, it was like the light coming on for me, that there's something different here. And to start off with, it makes learning a process where we're with people more than once, where training's an event, coaching is a process. But then I went and started getting into what happens in the brain, and it's what inspired me to get my doctorate, to really learn, what does it take to create long-term behavioral change? And what I found, and that's what I'm going to share with you today, is that it's really important that somebody has a thinking partner outside of their brain in order to make these changes. We just don't do this well on our own. So, and I know there was a question previously that somebody asked, well, how do I get new clients? One of the things is you need to be able to articulate the great value of coaching. Why would people invest in this? And this is it right here. You just can't tell people to change and have them actually change. That only works with their cognitive brain, which is short-term memory. It doesn't change who they think they are in the situation that they're facing. So people get really stuck in their stories. And so it's so hard for us to learn when we already know what to do, and we already know the answers. There's no opening for something new. And as Einstein said, reality is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. So we believe our stories, even when we're faced with, this story isn't serving me. We still hold on to it for survival. I need to know what to do. The brain needs to have a sense of knowing and a meaning for situations, to define it so we feel comfortable. And so it will resist self-reflection. And, when we're trying to decide what am I thinking that's not serving me, we do not do this on our own. And especially now when there's this intensity of emotions. I was reading something the other day and it said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you're feeling these abnormal emotions in abnormal times. So we have stress and various layers of stress, and things are going on. And some people are handling this better than others. Some people are really moving into like post-traumatic stress and really having a difficult time dealing with the changes that are going on in their lives. It's affecting their relationships. At the end of the day, they're frustrated. They don't know why. So again, because the brain wants to feel secure, it's going to protect. And if we have intense emotions, it resists change even more. And stress actually decreases the blood flow to the brain and decreases our cognitive capacity. So to even think that we can make these changes on our own is kind of expecting way, way too much of us as individuals. So if somebody says, well, I don't really need a coach, it's like, well, so that must mean that everything's fine in your life. So when we look at this, emotions do shape our reality. And Carl Sagan said, when we have strong emotions, we're liable to fool ourselves. And that's what goes on a regular basis. I know that even though I know this, to try to sit down and sort things out when I'm stuck, I have to call my coach and say, here's what's going on. And then she'll ask me a couple questions, you know, she'll state, here's what I hear you saying. And she'll ask me the question. I'm like, oh, you're right. But I could not see that on my own. You know, it was a number of years ago. I was just feeling so down and I had no energy and I couldn't get motivated in the day. And I didn't know what was going on. And I called her and she said, wow, it sounds like you're grieving. Was there something you expected to happen now that didn't happen? Is there a loss? And I was like, oh my God. And I had remembered that a year before, my first published book, Wonder Woman, was based on my dissertation, and I expected it to be this huge success, but it came out in the middle of a recession, and women's programs were cut, and it did not have the outcome that I had expected. And I said, I'll give this a year. And it was a year, and I was grieving the loss of that dream. And she helped me to see that, and I wouldn't have known on my own. And as soon as I knew that, I could allow myself to grieve and then move on. And that's when I then discovered my next book, and my next focus was once I was able to let go of the story, release the pain I was feeling, and see the possibilities. And that's what a coach does. So we do have an amazing capacity to observe our thinking. We just don't do this well on our own. So what the neuroscientists call this is we need an external thought disruptor. So whether they call it coaching or not, they said we need someone outside of us to disrupt our patterns of thinking, to share what they hear so we can look at our thoughts, and then to ask us the questions that maybe question our logic. That's the gift and the value of coaching. And that coaching doesn't, again, happen in an event. So somebody may understand how their story doesn't serve them anymore. But then when they go out to try new things, then they'll make up some new stories of why it's not working. My leader, the leaders I coach often do this. So to come back and to explore, so what's the story you're telling now? And to help them see through, often it's their fears or their frustrations, so they can continue growing and applying what they learn. It's the great value of coaching. So coaching helps people see through the fog of fear, doubt, and anger. They can't do this on their own. They need someone outside of themselves. So that's why we call coaching a transformational process. And I'll get into the difference between transaction and transformation in just a moment. But we're transforming their thinking, not just their actions. So the question we're always asking is, what is getting in the way of this smart, resourceful person from seeing their way forward? So if you look at the ICF definition of coaching, which I love that we created this 25 years ago and it still stands, that it's a partnering. So we're a thinking partner. We're not a doctor. We're not the expert. We're not advising them of what to do. We're helping smart people think through their situations. And even if it's development, what they want to do more of, we help them to do that in a way that they're struggling to do on their own. When we do that, then their thinking can expand and they can see new possibilities, which is what the transformation is. Instead of just actions, it's about thinking. So that's why I like to say that we are thinking partners. That's what a coach is. And that's what I tell my prospective clients as well as my clients. I remind them before we truly get into the coaching is, remember, I'm not here to tell you what to do, because I believe that you know and you're just not doing it, and we'll discover why. Or that we can discover this together. Because I know that once somebody discovers it on their own, then they commit to the action. They commit to the hard work. Where if somebody else gives them what to do, they don't necessarily make the commitment. So again, that's the great value, and your clients must know it. So even when my client says to me, I don't know what to do, what would you do? Or you've got experience in this. And yes, I do. I have many degrees and I've taught many classes, thousands of people. But giving you the answer is not really the value I can provide. You know, when a new leader says, I don't know, I don't have experience, I'll say, well, have you ever had a leader? You know, and of course they've had them. So what do you like in the leaders that you have, or what did you not like? Can we explore that and how that might fit into your decision to move forward? So I fall into the trap of, I don't know what to do. What would you do? You know, because again, it's not helpful. When I tell them, it pacifies their brain. It doesn't activate it. And that's what we're looking to do, especially now with all that's going on, and everything that's, you know, getting in the way of and distorting our thoughts. And we've seen coaching grow, you know, all around the world. And it's so great that this is the opportunity we have to truly make that difference. So I have a poll. Do we have the polls? The very first poll. Great. I want you to think about your own conversations and be honest, because we won't know what you said. So when you think of your own conversations right now, how often, on a percentage, and I'm talking about all conversations, not just coaching, how often do you actually tell people what you think? Or actually help them to think for themselves? So just, again, just fill out what you think. You know, and this is a question I always ask in my leadership classes when I teach them coaching skills, you know, because it creates an awareness. It's like, oh, how often am I doing this? So it's a great question to ask them.
Yeah, absolutely. And votes are coming in.
Yeah, I see they're all over.
Yeah.
That's good, because I often, again, you know, when I'm not coaching, I like to tell people what to do.
That's when you're not coaching.
I have shifted over the years. I've gotten much better.
Yeah. Wow, we're at 66.
But to admit it, I do admit it.
Don't we all do things like that?
Well, I inherited it. It's like my whole family's like that. It's like, must have been my parents.
Oh. Wow.
So, okay, are we good? Do we want to end the poll?
70% voted. Okay. So yeah, we can end the polls if you're happy with that. 70%
Sure.
votes. Sure. Okay. And the results are.
Okay, so we're good. So we have 75%. That's great, because it's not going to be 100%. You know, and I always tell my leaders that I'm not telling you to be a coach all the time. There will be times it calls for you to make the decision, to, you know, to set the vision, to mentor, if that's, you know, the relationship. So to know when to coach, that this is a coaching opportunity, that's critical in our coaching. And thank you for those who were honest, saying, I don't do this very often. Because change starts with awareness. So I said, outside of coaching, I've gotten much better, but I have to catch myself. You know, so, oh, wait a second. Does this person really want my opinion? Yeah. And am I setting up a dependency by always telling them what to do and what's right? And I've done that in the past. So it's just an awareness for you to start paying attention to your conversations. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's especially, when I said, how do I know when to coach? When somebody's feeling stuck, afraid, anxious, or lost, that's the time. Don't jump in. Consider coaching over giving advice and direction so they can see through the fog. They don't become dependent. Their brain doesn't shut down. It opens up. And they still may be afraid, but they can see what they could do even when they're afraid. We're not taking this away. To say right now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I have no idea. We're finally admitting this because we never really did, but we made up that we did. But to be able to move forward in spite of not knowing, that's one of the great gifts of this time. For coaches, you have to know how to be comfortable with not knowing so you can be present and collaborative with your clients, because their result is a collective effort with you and them, energetically as well as what you say. But they have to be comfortable with not knowing too. So, I've been teaching like leaders for decades. You have to embrace ambiguity, but it was just an intellectual process. Now they understand that they have to be okay with not knowing and to be able to say to people, I really don't know what's going to happen, but this is what we think is the best way to move forward right now. So it's a great gift, especially now. So I do want to just share with you the difference between transactional and transformational. And when we start coaching, if you're a new coach, we pretty much stay transactional, but you stay with the client instead of giving them advice. That's what an ACC is do you have the distinction of coaching? Did you just facilitate the person to discover what they should do next? So the word trans means crossing over. So transactional means to cross over into new action. And so when we problem solve, we help people determine, what might you do? What would be the consequences? What would be the rewards? How would this serve you? What's going on with the people that you're affecting? How might you address them differently? But it's very action, external focused. And that's okay. And sometimes, my coaching stays here because that's what they need. But if we're moving into transformation is transforming, meaning we're crossing over into a new formation. Something needs to emerge, a new thought, a new perspective. And oftentimes they have to let go of the old story to create the opening for the new to emerge. And that's why we go into the story, to help them to look at it, to see where's the gaps in their logic. How is their fear holding them back? What are they doubting? And what are they making up about the future that may or may not be true? So we go beneath the surface. Anytime they say but, whatever they say after but is a fear. So you want to say, so I heard you say, but this could happen. How real is that possibility? To look at their doubts. So many times leaders say, well, I can't have this conversation. They'll have an emotional reaction. Well, what will happen after they have an emotional reaction? They don't go beyond the difficult moment, the limiting beliefs. Unmet social needs, that's something we learn, in more advanced coaching, but what was I expected from this person? That's not happening, right? That they didn't give me. So like respect or being listened to, or maybe even safety. If somebody's intimidating, you don't feel safe, and that's a social need. So many times we get so stuck in our story because, the other day I was coaching this woman and she wanted to create her new job going forward. You know, like Saima said, that we're looking at purpose and meaning. But she kept going back talking about how her last boss was so awful and he didn't really listen to her and didn't acknowledge her. And then he fired her. And, you know, I said, do you need to clear the space in order to be able to see what's new in the future? No, I'm ready. And then we'd start talking about the future, and she kept jumping back to the past. And I finally said to her, I get that he didn't see you, that you felt invisible, that he didn't acknowledge your commitment, your hard work. Do you need to really work through this before you can move forward? And she paused and said, that's what I needed to hear. That's what I needed to realize. That's what he didn't give me. I'm ready now to move forward. So helping her to see what she didn't get. Or conflict of values. That's another one. I teach a lot in China, and they have this should. My parents say I should. My family says I should. And their shoulds are getting in the way of their dreams. So how are your shoulds getting in the way of your dreams? So we share observations. We ask about the meaning of these things and the impact on them and how they see the future. So they can adjust and choose what they want to create, which they can't do until they really dig deeper into the story. And we always ask them to articulate, so what's coming up for you? What are you learning now? Which then helps them to make the next steps. This is not that easy. That's why we go to coaching school.
Absolutely. And how long, if I have a question, if I may. So how long does it take for a coach to really master this transformational coaching?
Well, I think the key word is master, you know, because mastery, I see it as an ongoing journey. There's no destination. And so every year I feel I'm even a better coach. You know, we just get better at hearing, at identifying, hearing the deeper level. And I do this because we hear with our heart, we hear with our gut, not just our brain. We take it in and then we offer it back. So, you know, I hear this is what you're saying. And it seems to be that this is what's really frustrating you. What do you think about that? And we allow them to confirm it and to adjust it. And we just get better at this. But even if you're a new coach, I remember in my very first class, Thomas Leonard, who actually started the ICF, you know, said, go coach. That's the only way you can learn this is to coach. And we said, how can we coach? We don't have any skills. And he said, just go love them. Wow. And I'll never forget that it's that energy of care and creating a safe space that makes this work. And you get better at your skills over time. But if you just create the safe space and you care about your clients, then you allow them to say things that they couldn't say to anyone else, which helps them think. So don't beat yourself up. You will get better with practice.
Practice. There's some interaction in the chat box. I love the distinction of pacifying the brain versus activating the brain from Faryal. Thanks a lot, Dr. Marcia. I'm a brain-based coach, very interested in neuroscience. I so much relate to what you're saying. Mindfulness practice is a great help of building awareness. And Juan Carlos, I think, can I, as a father, coach my own son who is trying to pass a very critical, anxious state in his life due to the pandemic, stress, and paralysis? Or
yes, now's the time to coach. Don't tell him what to do. He won't hear it. This is the best time to coach when they're, you know, going through this difficult time.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, I have a friend who wrote a book, Parent as Coach, and has taught classes all over the world to parents about how to use coaching. And it's so valuable. And yes, there's times you have to draw the bottom line and say, okay, this is it, you know, so you don't always coach. But when they're feeling anxious and going through these hard times, this is the best time to truly listen, to allow them to tell their story, to talk about what's going on, to feel okay wherever they are. If you say, oh, don't feel that way, you discount them. To say, I get it. I know that it's a difficult time and we don't know what's going to happen next year. What is it you need right now that I can best support you? Just that is huge.
And that's so tricky for parents to do, you know.
I know, because you have in your mind who I am as parents. You have to shift that. Parent is coach. Parent is coach.
Yeah,
I love that.
Love your talk. They're so profound. There's a lot of thanks for intricate session. I got a lot of cues.
Good. Well, I love the pairing, you know, of purpose of coaching and now how. So I want to go a little bit deeper into how. And I use a lot of reflection when I coach. So it's not just questions. It makes me crazy when coaches only ask questions and think that coaching is questioning. It's not. And that's why they're even changing the coaching competencies to evoking awareness and taking the focus off of just asking questions. That there's a lot of reflecting what you hear, summarizing the key words, noticing emotional shifts, that's even more powerful. And then asking the question, following the reflection. So this is what's called reflective inquiry. And when I wrote my last book, I'm like, okay, I've been calling this for a long time. Where did it come from? And I went back into all my research and my work and my last few degrees, and it has nothing to do with therapy. It was a guy named John Dewey, who was an educational reformer and wrote a book in 1910 called How We Think. He wanted teachers to get their students to think more broadly for themselves. And he said, you must, when they say things, you must say, okay, so here's what I hear you saying, so they can hear their words and then ask the question. And it's the first chapter of his book, then it gets into a lot of technical detail, but the first chapter is amazing. And defining coaching. I'm like, he defined coaching over 100 years ago. He said that when we use reflections plus questions, we enable people to climb a tree in their brain and look down on their stories, and then they can assess it objectively. They're not stuck in the story. So they can see the gaps in their logic, the faults in their thinking, the stuff they're making up about the future and not seeing other possibilities. To understand what's their frustration. What are they angry? What are they angry about? A lot of people are angry right now. They've said a lot of the fears turned into anger and not understanding at the end of the day why they're angry. You know, and it's okay. Life didn't turn out the way we had expected. And our needs for space, you know, were invaded. And so there's anger going on, and helping people understand it's okay where you're at. Let's take a look at what's triggering that. It's so critical. So the brain is a box of stories. And this is in the middle brain, in long-term memory. Again, not in short-term memory. It's in long-term. It's where we hold our stories tightly. And what we want to do, when we help them to see their stories, they can start to see how they identify who I think I am. So again, parent. Is it parent, I must tell them what to do, or parent is coach? What's my identity? How do I see myself in this situation? That's what we do when we coach their stories, so they can separate the past from what are the facts, what's real right now. So disruptive reflection. So again, this disruptive I love that term from the neuroscientists, that it's disruptive only because it shakes up their thinking. They may have emotional reactions. That's okay. Oftentimes when I reflect back to someone, so you're telling me this, they could be embarrassed. They can be sad. They can get mad at me. I've had clients get very mad at me. I had this one woman, she was very high strung, but a very high leader in a global corporation, had an MD and a PhD. She was so smart. And she was struggling with making her kids do their homework. You know, and I said, okay, so what I heard you say was making them, which is sounded very forceful, to do something that is difficult for them, you know, and all they were doing was asking to have pizza. You know, and I said, so the request that they're making, is that really impacting the result? Well, she started screaming at me, you have no idea, you're not a parent, you don't understand, and she hung up on me. And then when she called me back, she said, okay, I had a moment to breathe. Thank you. We stayed together for the longest time because I was willing to challenge her thinking. And even her boss said to me, can't you just make her happy where she's at? And I'm like, no, I can't make her happy where she's at. And it's not my job to do that. He was scared of her. She's got an amazing job right now, a huge, huge impact in our country. We have to have the courage to be able to help them stop and see these stories, how powerful that is. Because when we do, this is what's called insight-based learning. So when we give people information, that's fact-based learning. But information doesn't change behavior. I want you all to think, are there things you know you should be doing right now, but you're not? We all have some things we know is the right thing to do, but we don't do it. Information doesn't change behavior. It could maybe help us to understand things better, but doesn't change us. And fear might change our behavior, but we're only doing it for someone else and not ourselves. So what we want to do is create an insight, that new awareness, to help see the stories and how their stories are getting in the way, and what else is possible if they have a different perspective. Breakthrough is breaking through the frame of the story. We help expand their view of the world, themselves, what they believe is true. And this is called insight-based learning. And that's the great value. That's the great value of coaching. So, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Do you have a question?
The chat. I have a question. I have a lot of, wow, Anita's probably monitoring the chat box because it's really on fire with a lot of thanks that people love the concept of coaching. And my question is, can you give us examples of the different types of learning that you mentioned? Like the fact-based.
So when I tell someone fact-based learning is you should do this because, and I give you all the reasons why you should. And often when we give feedback, this is what we do. Okay, so what you're doing isn't working. Here's what you should do differently. But it doesn't change how I see myself in the story. So I might do it, but usually I'll find good reasons not to continue it. You know, so I had a client who wanted to be seen by a leader. He was an extreme expert, helps to move water through our state, and our state's a desert. Like many of you live in the desert, so you know water is critical. And he was a huge expert in water and negotiation of water rights. And in his team meetings, he'd always interrupt and give his opinion. And people were saying, you know, his boss was saying, well, if you want to be a leader, you're going to have to stop that, okay, because you're kind of shutting people down, you know. And he behaved a little bit, you know, and listened a little, and then he'd jump in and give his advice. And so they went and hired me to coach him. And I did, we talked about leadership. What is leadership? And he had the identity of, I'm the expert, they need my advice. Okay. But then I did a live 360 where I went out and I interviewed all these people, and they all said, we know he's smart, but he's not giving us a chance to talk. He's not being collaborative and letting us learn together. And I came back to him and I shared this, and he says, oh, I know who said that. There's just a few people who don't like me. That was his story. And I said, oh no, even the people who like you said that. Everyone said that. They're rooting for you. But when you jump into expert, you're not being a leader. And it hurt him. He told me later, he said that really hurt. But it was the insight he needed really to create that breakthrough, the frame in the story he was holding on to, that they need me because they don't know. Because they don't know. And to look at, when you put on leadership hat, what does that mean? And what's most useful for them? So I had to break through his story with my reflections, my questions, and the live 360 results that I then shared with him, which helped him to take responsibility. And he was promoted to leader. It took some time, but it really was a shift. It really was a shift. And I've run into the same thing over and over and over, especially when I have leaders that are in new cultures. And they, I had this one leader who was Dutch, and she was living in Panama, which is Latin American. Different concept of leadership, from efficiency to family. And, we had to look at, how do they define leader? What could you do to fit into that definition so they see you as leader that feels authentic for you? So that's fact-based. Fear-based is, what leaders have been doing for years. You must do this or else. And most reward systems are consequence rewards, performance reviews are fear-based. That's why a lot of them are going to coaching instead. And so people will do things again, and it becomes permanent because I must do this or something bad will happen to me. And then we want them to be agile and to think differently and do things different, especially now. And they can't, because it lodges in the primal brain, survival. I must do this or else. I must do this or else. And then we wonder why they resist change. So it works, but it's not efficient for an agile environment. So that's why we want insight-based learning, which works in the middle brain, changes the stories, which changes them forever and their behavior. It's far more efficient. And it's why a lot of companies, like I do proposals where I pair training with coaching. So it's like, okay, especially right now, they're asking me to teach them how to be coaches. So we'll have a training session together on what it is, how to do it. And then they go off and they do peer coaching and they practice. And then I'll come back and I'll do some mentoring. And then they continue to practice and then maybe do some follow-up training. And then they continue to practice and I'll do another mentoring session. It's a process of learning, which supports them. And it's far more effective. And again, remember that that's my degrees, is in learning, not therapy, but learning. Coaching is the best learning technology we have right now. And even better than something could come in the future electronically, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
Yeah, they're talking about the AI.
Yeah.
I see we need a lot of connection and human connection. And like all these stories, it takes a lot of courage as a coach, to be able to hold the client and push them. So I'm wondering, do all clients really, allow you or want you to coach them at this level?
Yeah. Well, we have to have safety. They have to feel safe with us. And sometimes we can set that up right away. I've gotten much better at creating a very safe environment fairly quickly with my energy because I care about them and I'm authentic. But we have to have that. And not all my clients will feel it in the first session or two, just depending on how quickly they can trust. So that may take a little time, but be careful about assuming someone's not coachable right away. There's, again, coachability could take time. They have to see the value in the process. And I had a client who was in a leadership development program, and he told me in the first session, I don't really want to be a leader. They threw me into this, so I don't know what this coaching is going to do. And I said, okay, I understand that, but tell me what it is that you most enjoy out of your work right now. What is it that they thought you might be a good leader? He says, well, I love supporting my team and the younger team members. I've been in the company for 20 some odd years, and the new guys coming in, it's really great. I love being with them. I said, well, sounds a little like leadership. Maybe that's what they saw in you. Would you like to just focus on that? And he said, well, that's interesting. I haven't thought about it. That's kind of different. And we ended the session with him sorting through what does he do that may be called leadership instead of just, helping the guys. And he came back the next time and said, okay, I get it. That they do see me as a leader of sorts. I just don't want to be a formal title. I said, well, nobody said you had to have a formal title. This is all up to you, but I'm here to help you in whatever you want to do. Well, he ended up taking on the leadership, but there were times he came, this was an industry that was fading. It was an old energy industry. And they had a layoff, and he came to the call and he said, I'm not coachable today. He had that language. Wow. I'm not coachable today. I'm angry. I'm like, okay, if you want to talk about it, just talk about that. I gave him a safe space to vent, and that was fine. And then the next session he came back and he was okay. And we got back into coaching. So don't expect it to be an always on, gonna happen, gonna have a breakthrough every time. You need to just sense what's going on with them right now, and how can I best serve them? So, but I just wouldn't turn in that recording to the ICF if I wasn't really coaching them.
All right, nice tip. I think it's a nice tip. So I don't know if we have questions, Anita, but all I see here are just very powerful, insightful. Wow, that's powerful, and a lot of praises about this presentation. So maybe we go on and keep the Q&A till the end.
Okay. Well, we have another poll coming up. So I've talked about reflection, and so I want to just look at in the final time together some tips on how to use reflection. So could you bring up the poll?
Yes, sure. Here's number 2.
So reflective statements should start by, and I want you to choose one, even though they all may work. I want you to choose the one you think is most powerful. So I hear you saying, so you're saying, or do I have your permission to share? And then to ask them, so what are you feeling right now?
Coming in quickly. So we're reaching 63% of polls for those who still didn't vote yet.
Okay. Let's get to 70.
Yeah.
And then we can call it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have a lot of time left. I have way too many slides. And that's okay. We don't need to get to all of them.
Let's get to it.
Okay.
Okay. So
this was a trick question. So I want to just share with you that the second one is actually most profound. And I learned this through dealing with a CIA interrogator, that he said, if you can take the word I, and I use I hear you saying, but if you can take the word I out, then it's not about you, and they're not confirming your perception. You're sharing what you hear. So this is what you're saying, that these are the problems that you're facing. Which one is most critical to work on first? Or you got really quiet when you were thinking about that person and what could happen next. What went on in that moment? And again, I say I heard you saying, but really think about it. If you can take the I out of it. So if you say, I hear you saying, what do you think? They may confirm that you're right instead of holding it out for them to look at. So it's just something for you to think about. And then do I have permission? Maybe at the very beginning, but please don't keep asking this. It's disruptive. And I never ask it unless it feels really, really deep or dark. I might say, there was something that was really, really underneath what you were saying. Would you be willing to take a look at that with me? But even the ICF now says you don't have to ask permission to ask questions or to share. Again, unless it feels really heavy. And then the last one, what are you feeling? Clients don't know what they're feeling. I always say, reflect what you think. It sounds like you got really sad at that moment. Is that what it is? And let them tell you, yeah, I'm sad this is happening. Or no, it's not sad. I'm just confused. And let them tell you, but offer them something so they can start with. Just what are you feeling? Some people can go there, but a lot of people can't. They don't have a language for it. Okay, so it's a skill. Reflection is a skill that needs to be worked on and developed. And again, we haven't given enough power to reflection. If you listen to my demos, and I have quite a few on my YouTube channel, you'll see how I use reflection. I use reflection even more than questions, to let people look at their thinking. It's so powerful, so powerful. So you're telling me this, and then I'll ask the question. And I do ask questions, but usually I pair it with a reflection to help them think. So reflective statements, again, we're not parroting back. So you're telling me this, and you tell them exactly what you heard. You look for the key words. So, you kept using the word passion. You really want your passion to be able to use that. Can you tell me more about what that would look like? Or, what do you think your passion is? So again, we listen for key words. We offer observations always if there's energy shifts. And at the end, always acknowledge your clients for their willingness to share and to go on this journey with you. We need to end our coaching always with that. And that is a part of your markers for the ICF. So don't be afraid of emotions. Don't be afraid. I have been teaching coaches for decades now, and it's amazing to me the moment there's an emotion, they back off. Or if the person cries, they run to get a Kleenex. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just breathe and hold the space and give them the time to process it. Because if you jump in to fix them, you weaken them. You weaken them. And then they may even feel bad for what they feel. But criers always come out of it. Frustrated people always calm down if we give them the space. And then you can say, so whoa, that was a big reaction. What did that mean to you? Are you ready to share? Would you mind sharing what's coming up for you now? What are you thinking about? So we share, we allow them to feel, and then ask them what it means to them. If we don't allow them the full processing of emotion, we deny them a piece of humanity. We are emotional animals. And to say, if somebody says I'm not true. So remember, coaching is about creating a safe space for them to show up. And then they'll be willing to explore with you. So we have one last poll. You want to share that?
Sure, it's up there. It's up there.
Okay, this is the last thing I really want to share with you, this thing called non-reactive empathy. If we don't get to the rest of my slides, it's okay. This is really important. Okay, feel the emotions without trying to make them feel differently. Understand what they feel, but don't feel the emotions with them. Feel the emotions and then breathe and release. Or fully feel. It's tough.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. In fact, I'm recording a video this week, so pay attention to my social media on the whole thing about non-reactive empathy. So it's just a 3-minute video, but I'm gonna go into it. So take a look at that. So again, all over the place. I love that.
Yes, it's just like swaying. We can't see one answer winning over clearly. And with 60% votes. And I love what you said, like reflecting is not parroting back. So I hear you say, it's like.
Yeah, exactly what they said. In fact, the ICF assessors will mark you down. That's what they call contra evidence. Don't parrot. Summarize, pull out keywords, help them to think. I had this one woman, she was all over the place. And it's like, I have this problem, blah, 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 blah. And then I finally said, because, you can interrupt if they start repeating themselves. I said, do you mind if I interrupt you and just see where we're going with this? And she was fine. And I said, okay, I hear 3 things. And I summarized the 3 issues. And I said, what's most critical for you right now to look at? And she went, oh my God, thank you. I didn't, that was so important that you just pared it down to the 3 things. I can't do that myself. So just that was critical. Okay, so we have 7 minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we're all over the place with this. So the second one, that's so fascinating. I understand what my clients feel, but don't feel the emotions with them. That's called cognitive empathy. And we do have to feel the emotion in order to really be able to respond to it. If we're just understanding it at a cognitive abstract level, they don't sense that we really get it. They might, but the thing is that feel the emotions without trying to make them feel differently. That's the first step, but we actually do. It's see. I allow myself to feel what they're experiencing, but then I understand it, and then I breathe and release it so I can come back and be curious. So I can say, wow, I sense that this is such a conflicting, confusing time, and that you have so much going on with trying to figure out what's going forward, that it's just kind of like clogging up your body. So if that's what's going on, can we explore what might be useful for you to sort this out, to maybe see different pathways that you might take? So to be able to help them to process and move forward, we do feel it with them. That's called emotional empathy. But then we need to release it and have what's called empathic concern. I feel it. but I don't stay with it. I don't hold on to their emotion. I don't step into their and live in their story. Otherwise, you'll experience what's called empathic distress, and you'll get too involved. And the Dalai Lama says, use compassion. Just care about them, feel it, and then come back to care and believe that they can see a way forward, remembering that they're creative, resourceful, and whole. Okay.
So we have the winner. Yep.
I just want to get to the definition.
All right.
Okay. So remember, you're coaching the person. All right. You're coaching them to move through their experience, to see possibilities, not staying external. But don't attach to their emotions or their story. You experience it and then breathe and let it go. So you allow the emotions to move through you, and you feel care and compassion, but you stay curious so you can keep the coaching space open. So the skills, we have to learn presence. We have to learn presence. I always say mastery is the deepening of presence, more so than the perfection of your skills. How can I be fully present with this person and believe in them, to experience with them, but believe they can move forward? That's the great gift, the great value, and that's the path to mastery that we all work on. That will take time. That will take time. So with that, I'm going to leave it here. You know, and my final question is always, can you give up being the healer, the fixer, the expert in order to be the coach? So is there any final question or two that we can answer in the last minute?
I'll take back to Anita.
In fact,
we're lucky being here today. Great learning. Thank you for the learning. Absolutely loving my client is what works. Anita, do we have questions?
Questions? No, there's a lots of very nice comments in the comment box, but very great insights. There is one question from Dr. Dumi. How do you recover from a bout of empathic distress?
You know what? You do what I just did. Breathing, releasing the energy. You've got to breathe. What happens whenever we feel distress, fear, any emotion, is that we quit breathing. You know, throughout the day, you quit breathing quite a bit the moment you feel anxiety. So you have to breathe. Release it, and then come back to being, to care. I care about my client and I believe in them. So we relax, detach, you know, and then ground yourself. Anything you can do to get centered and present, and then come back to caring about them and be curious, compassionately curious in the moment. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, that's beautiful.
Look at
lots
them.
more thanks. Thank you so much, Marcia. Every time I learn something new from me, says Tatiana. Joy, thank you so much. If you have time for one or two more questions, maybe we can ask people to post in the questions and answer box. We do have one question from Magdalena. How do you anchor and nurture your coaching practice?
Exactly that. Practice. You know, this is why there's a requirement by the ICF to have mentors, you know, when we're learning, because mentors help you to move forward. But don't just quit after you get your certification. You know, it's like, it's good to check in with your mentors periodically, to, after a year or so, work with a mentor. Peer coach, you know, attend classes where you can practice. There's a lot of you know, more mastery classes going on right now during the pandemic. You know, I'm doing this big program for WBEX, and in between we're having practice sessions. and then Q&A. And so again, it's an ongoing process like learning any behavior. Don't think that once you graduate, you got it. You know, because again, mastery is a journey. Mastery is a journey.
Mastery is
Thank
a journey.
you. And a question from Afsana. How could you find a good mentor who you can learn from and grow your coaching from?
You know, just like when you hire a coach, I would interview a few mentors. You know, you can go on to the ICF website and find mentors, right?
Yes, absolutely.
See my buddy shaking his head. Yes. So yeah, don't pull them just out of the hat, and make sure they have the credential that you're looking for. You know, so you know, PCC, MCC, and that they've been recognized by the ICF as having the experience that they need. They don't credential them, they don't test them, but you have to, you know, demonstrate that you have the background. And again, I would interview a couple because sometimes the mentor you work with isn't the right one for you. I've had people come to me that were like, well, you know, I didn't really get what I was looking for in my mentoring. But, you know, they'll come to you at all different times in your journey, you know, and will provide you with the help that you need. I would suggest too, once you finish a school, find a mentor from another school, so you don't just get stuck in that school's methodology and use their terms. So you get coaching on a more broader scale, you know, different perspectives from mentors. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
And again, lots more thanks. There is no more questions unless you want to
Okay.
open the floor for any more questions at this point. Most of it is thanks for a lot of learning in this session. 1 second, we have, yeah, phenomenal session, Marcia. Your experience and wisdom allows us all to learn a lot every time you present.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there is not enough learning that we can get from you, because truly I've like listened to you so many times, and I told you last time, every time there's something new, even in the same presentation. I would
Thank you.
like to quote Linda.
I try for that.
As Linda McLaughlin has said just in the chat box, Marcia, you're a total gift to the profession. I'd like to echo that. I love the concepts
Thank
of
you.
coaching into unmet social needs and through the fog of strong emotions. There are too many
There was a
metaphors.
question about following me. I would say LinkedIn better than Facebook. Facebook is personal. I do have pages, but I don't track at them as much as I do on LinkedIn and my YouTube channel. Okay. All right. I
Well,
think we're done.
I think with that brings us to the end of the session, and also at the end of the whole UAE 2020 fall event. I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Marcia. Thank Dr. Saima and Amy on behalf of the ICF UAE chapter, and on behalf of our attendees tonight, and on behalf of the audience who will be listening to the recording. The good news is we will be posting the recording for this event on our local website, coachfederation.ae, under the blog. I would also like to thank the amazing coaches for attending this event for us tonight, and for all the interactions. Thanks to definitely everyone on the chapter and the UAE board who has made this event possible and worked hard to make it happen. We'll be sending you in the chat box right now a link to a feedback survey. We would love to hear your feedback, your opinion, because it matters to us. So if you could complete this, it is completely anonymous and very important to us. Another final reminder, you can claim your CCEUs by attending this event by emailing events@coachfederation.ae. And the good news, you have core competencies CCEUs for attending this. Any last remarks that you want to say, Maisa? Let us post in the chat box. Is Maisa's here?
Yes, Lina, I would like to thank you and thank everyone, thank the speakers for the inspiration and for the insights. I'm not sure I'll be able to sleep tonight. I'm so excited. I have a lot of ideas happening here. So thank you. And of course, thank you to the board for the hard work and to make this happen. Thank you for our members, for your support, and for the global audience. This year had been a bit of a challenge to many of us on too many levels. Yet this event is an excellent proof that yes, with the challenges, together we can overcome the challenges, and we are making the best out of the opportunities we have. And I love to see that the coaching community growing globally. And please keep growing, keep inspiring, keep changing the world. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
So,
And we have,
so happy.
sorry, one more link. It was to Dr. Marcia handout. It's a gift, so you can download it right away. You can ask also events@coachfederation.ae for either the handout or the CCEUs or a link to the recording. Keep communicating with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Haitham.
Thank you. Can you stay a little bit, guys?
I think meanwhile, maybe some of the attendees can fill out. It takes 2 minutes to fill the survey. We would really appreciate that from you, and it will also make us serve you better next time. Okay. So we still have people. If you fill the